Welcome everyone to another astrology video. My name is Erik Roth, shamanic astrologer, and I'm here to talk about what's upcoming for May of 2023. So we've got a lot to share around that and just some updates. I'm continuing to do holistic fairs through the year here on the West Coast. And so you can look for me and my event schedule online, as well as on my newsletter and social media as well. So if you're interested in meeting with me in person and hearing maybe a presentation or taking a class, I'm also going to be having some future online offerings. So also be on the lookout for that. But without further ado, I will launch right into this video. So this is episode 48 of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. This is really looking at the May astrology of 2023. And so we'll go over the calendar month. There is one of these items I'm going to talk about that is going to also have its own dedicated video, and that's when Jupiter is in the sign of Taurus, which happens also in May. And then coming up in June and July, I will be looking at particularly the Mars and Venus alignment that's taking place. So including Venus retrograde and the way the cycles interact between those two planets. So I'll be really diving into that when we move forward here into probably have that video available by the end of May, if not in early June. Okay, so what are the highlights? Well, the big things that are going on: Pluto stationing retrograde. There's a penumbral lunar eclipse. Of course, that is part of another video that I recently did. So you can look for that. That happens on May 5th, the actual eclipse, so lunar eclipse. The aforementioned Jupiter and Taurus, full and new moons, which include, of course, the eclipse, and the Saturn Sun Square. And then there's Mercury stationing direct and Mars in Leo. So let's take a look kind of along the calendar month and see what else is what is happening here. So Pluto stationing retrograde. So Pluto has every year these outer planets, they go retrograde and then they go direct. So this is a very common thing. But I wanted to point out that this particular retrograde Pluto is the first time that it's in the sign of Aquarius since the late 18th century, 1796. And it puts it at 00 degrees, 21 minutes. So just inside the very first degree of Aquarius. And that will happen at 10:08 a.m. Local time. So Pacific daylight time here on the West Coast of America, and 1:08 p.m. on the Eastern time, Eastern seaboard of the U.S. Pluto will continue to slow its orbit and gain less than 2 degrees across the sky each year. So Pluto is currently slowing down in its orbit, and it has been since it entered Capricorn back in 2008. And Pluto's going to spend over 20 years in the sign of Aquarius. And so it's going to get to a point when we get into the 2040s where it's going to be moving like closer to like 1.5 degrees around there per year. So it isn't going to be moving very much per year once we get toward the later stages of Pluto and Aquarius and into Pluto and Pisces. Next year, it only gets to 2 degrees, 6 minutes. So that's less than 2 degrees from this year. Pluto will be retrograde for over 5 months until it stations direct on October 10th of this year, 2023, at 27:53 Capricorn. So Pluto's only in the sign of Aquarius for about 2.5 months in 2023, and then 2024 it'll spend closer to 9 months in Aquarius. So the meaning for retrograde for planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, Eris, there's not as much influence, if you will, relatively speaking, compared to, say, when Venus goes retrograde, or Mercury or Mars, and even some of the asteroids. There's definitely more meaning with the inner planets as opposed to the outer planets. Outer planets being Jupiter and outward, inner planets being those that are orbiting within Jupiter, closer to the sun. So this it's a transition because Pluto is transitioning still from Capricorn to Aquarius. So that's another reason why this particular one is more noteworthy, because it's between two signs. And so the retrograde has more meaning. And so moving, Pluto tends to bring up whatever sign it's in, the shadows of that sign, transformation of that sign, sort of a rebirthing of that sign. But in order to get there, it's surrendering to what once was into something what could potentially become. So we're moving into the, from the shadows of laws, of knowledge, of structure, particularly infrastructure and systems, into the shadows of what innovation and freedom and idealisms, along with energy use with regards to Aquarius. Now, Pluto does not equal, oh my God, it's all going to be bad, but it's transformational. So there is a process of disempowerment into something that ultimately can become empowerment. So there's a whole Pluto and Aquarius video that I did that you can learn more about on my YouTube channel. And I'll have links to the eclipse video as well as the Pluto in Aquarius video as well. So the first eclipse season, this will be the second eclipse of this season and this year. And this happens on May 5th. This is a full moon eclipse, a penumbral eclipse. So only like the shadow of the shadow is going to be visible. And that's happens in very similar area as the hybrid solar eclipse and the Indian Ocean, Australia, parts of Asia, and that region of the Earth there, sort of what they call the Eastern Hemisphere. The sun will be conjunct Uranus and Vesta at that time. So here's the map of where it's going to be. The whole duration of the eclipse is over 4 hours. And the eclipse starts 8:15 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So wherever your calculations are from that, that's essentially, so that's about, if we say universal time, we add on about 8 hours to that, which will be about 4:15 p.m. or so at the start of the eclipse, and going on for a 4-hour period on, again, May 5th. And then you get later here in Eastern Asia, and you can get into the May 6th territory as well. Here it is where it'll be in the sky, the penumbral eclipse. And so it's right there next to Zubanel Janubi. And I talk a lot more about what that means and the scales constellation, because there's certainly vibrations of what's the balance of shadow and light are, and sort of the edge, a peek into the shadow of humanity around this particular eclipse. So being in Scorpio, it's definitely going to be there's going to be a greater emphasis on the sort of the edge of life and the vitality and life force energy and the shadow of that, sort of kind of an irrational type of energy that comes through, and balancing out with our own, the deal of facing our fears and working on ourselves. And here's what the eclipse is. And so I can talk a little bit here about this. So the theme is a full elimination of the balance of shadow and light. It's also recognition and awareness of our shadow, and it's also highly unpredictable, because there's a little bit of an offshoot here with Uranus that kind of spurred it out to a sense of not fully comprehending of what's really going on here, like an instability, but yet a desire for balance at the same time. It could be about more opportunities to relax and journey into the deeper realms at the same time, as there are things that can be distracting us from our life. But it's about really, because it's Taurus sun, it's about how what feels good in the body. And then the moon in Scorpio is like the intensity of it, the force around, like pushing to the very edge of life and death. So you get that shadow end along with what is supposed to feel good, and then you can get some really interesting dynamics with that. Another point that's not seen in the chart is this conjunction with Zuben-el-Genumi, and I mentioned the balance of the scales. These are two stars, so you're going to see, for those of you going to be able to see this eclipse, again, it's going to be very faint, so it'll be hard to detect with the naked eye, just kind of a faint shadow on the moon, but there'll be a star next to the moon, and that's Zuben-el-Genumi. So that's one of the scales of the scales constellation, what astronomers still call Libra, but signs and constellations are different. Now there's a Mercury retrograde coming up also in May, or Mercury direct, but Mercury retrograde started April 21st, and it's going to go on until May 14th. 1537 that's where it started to go retrograde, 1537 Taurus, and it'll retrograde all the way back to 550 Taurus. So it's just going to go back about 10 degrees. And Taurus, here we have another theme around Taurus during the month of May, not just with the eclipse, the lunar eclipse, but with this Mercury retrograde. So here's the station point. You can see all of this energy in Taurus, and this little one here, that's Sedna. And normally I don't include that in there, but in the coming months, I think within the next year, it's that could be something I may comment on in a later video more, because it'll be moving into Gemini, and that's important for, and it's anytime an outer planet or a dwarf planet moves into a new sign, it's a really, really big deal. And so you can see Mercury stationing direct here, and it's just with the North Node and Vesta and Uranus all here. Here's the sun, almost 20 degrees away, about 19 plus degrees away, around there. So Taurus is about the physical form or body, and the processes and communication are more tangible with this. So again, with Mercury symbolizing the mind, communication, and perceptions, this is about the mind's connection to the body, and the feelings, the five senses are highlighted here. So it's a good time for greater practice in communicating with and perceiving with them, our own senses, rather than only the pure intellect or the mind itself. So during this time, while Mercury's retrograde, including when it goes direct, and anytime Mercury really is in Taurus, it's just more highlighted when it's more emphasized when Mercury's retrograde and then going direct. So it's going over a 10-degree area 3 times. Mercury will be conjunct the North Node, so there's also an emphasis about humanity's future here with the station point. So the intimacy with our bodies and with Earth, and also the conveniences and its sustainability. So our relation to conveniences have got, particularly in the Western culture, have gotten more and more emphasized, like immediate service, basically in certain parts of the world where you can order just about anything online and receive it within a reasonable window, sometimes the same day. And so these are conveniences. We go back many decades, we go back to fast food, we go back to certain things that we could just conveniently pull up and grab our food out of a drive-through window here, particularly in the United States. And that kind of spread to other parts of the world after that. The conveniences of being able to have, all the internet, electricity, all the modern conveniences that we know of. And this is something that we've now created in a space where it's a necessity for most of the world here. But there's still a good portion of the world that doesn't have these conveniences. And maybe this could be also sort of on a sidebar where, hey, having an awareness where others may not be enjoying this kind of convenience. And that may be kind of a space where we might be helping out in that way. Taurus is normally not necessarily a giving sign, but it is one that loves to share the good stuff with others. So this could be looked at in that way where, hey, well, having some perspective, particularly with Mercury, having perspective about our conveniences, our relationship with the pleasures of life, and maybe a way of having greater connection with the earth rather than just only the technological front of things. Okay, so Jupiter is going to be moving into Taurus. I talked a little bit about this in my 2023 video when I posted that in December of 2022. So this will have its own video. So stay tuned for that in the coming weeks. Jupiter's transit through Aries then brings it into the sign of Taurus. This is an archetype of authentic receiving, pleasure, sensuality, and comforts. This is only 2 days after Mercury goes direct. So it includes our way of life from with Earth and from where nearly everything we enjoy comes from. This is May 16th, 2023. It moves into Taurus and stays there for an entire year, just over a year, until May 25th, 2024. Jupiter expands all that it transits, being it another planet that it's conjunct, a star, or a sign. So it definitely amplifies Taurus and therefore our relationship with comforts and receiving the pleasures of life. It is like the garden of earthly delights coming alive very strongly. Last time this happened was in June 2011 through June 2012. Now, there's one aspect I didn't write down here in this slide is that 2 days after Jupiter moves into Taurus on May 16th, it'll be squaring Pluto. And I feel like, particularly with Pluto at the 0-degree mark of Aquarius, that there's a major transmission there coming through. And with regards to consciousness in the mind, Aquarius, and the physical form, the body and the five senses, like some kind of dialogue that's happening. And this is definitely when last year, actually, was it about 2 years ago? Yeah, 1 to 2 years ago, Uranus, and it was 2021 and in 2022 partly, Uranus and Saturn were square while Saturn was in Aquarius. So there's this feels like a deeper dive into that, maybe not so like where there was 3 squares between Uranus and Saturn during 2021 and almost nearly a 4th exact square in 2022. It got within 2/3 of 1 degree at that point. But this feels like a deeper dive into that, into the shadow energy of between Taurus and Aquarius and what needs to transform. So Pluto will call out the shadow and help us understand what needs to transform. On May 20th, we have Mars in Leo. Now there's another thing I wanted to bring in of Mars and Leo on May 20th, but with regards to the new moon, this is right around this time. So I wanted to bring this in. I didn't have a slide created for this, but I definitely wanted to share the actual astrology chart for this because it's also in the sign of Taurus. So we have this happening here at 2825 Taurus, and that's about 9 degrees away from Uranus. So this is the new moon. This is on May 19th. So just a day before Mars moves into the sign of Leo, which I just had brought up here. I wanted to bring this energy in because we see a lot of Taurus energy. I mean, we saw that other chart that was packed when Mercury was stationing direct. We can see that here on the the right-hand side of the screen here, a lot of that Taurus energy. And then we have this, still quite a lot, but Mercury has already gone direct, the North Node. Now Jupiter is joining them. Jupiter is now in Taurus as well. So you have this huge amount of Taurus energy happening for May, and this new moon is sort of it's always a great time to start new projects and begin things, to set intention. And with Taurus energy, this is about pleasures of life, the comforts, how we receive. And if you're somebody that's always giving, always giving, always giving, and expending all of your energy, this could be a time where you might spend time with yourself and learning how to receive or receive from others and connecting with the physical form, connecting with the body. And it's also connection to intimacy with the physical form, whether it's, with a partner, with the gardens, with spa or massage. These are the kinds of activities that Taurus absolutely loves. So it's connecting with that and the Garden of Earthly Delights. So maybe setting an intention around that can help you also balance out. If you are giving a lot, this could be something that would be of great help for you. Again, this is May 19th, that it'll happen on the Pacific Coast at 8:53 a.m. Pacific and be at 11:53 a.m. Eastern time. So that could be something to mark your calendars and mark your, for any kind of setting intention. New moons are great for that. All right, so let's go back to Mars and Leo. This is setting up a really big event, one of the big highlights of 2023, particularly between Mars and Venus. So Mars will be in Leo from May 20th to July 10th. Mars's ingress into the sign of Leo is a big deal because there's this great dance between Venus and Mars in the cycles. I did a presentation recently in near Corvallis, Oregon, in Albany, Oregon, at an event called the Bersani Body, Mind, Spirit Fair. And I talked about this a lot during that. It was about a 30 to 40-minute presentation I did. And it was solely about this. And so there'll be a video version of that that I'll create that's about this. So by itself, though, Mars's journey through Leo is a transit through lessons about self-love and the embodiment of creativity. It is part of the masculine that also connects to procreation as an action of creative impulse. So procreation is like sort of one of the essences of that, but also a sense of creating something, whether it be an art form, whether it be a particular project, whether it be, a new home, maybe a creative new creation of a new relationship. Leo is through self-love, it creates. Astrologically, the voice and presence of the masculine, so again, we're talking about Mars here, can be amplified during this time. Leo tends to be part of a small number of signs where ego also becomes a priority, both healthy and not so healthy. So the volume of energy could definitely be turned up greatly during this time. So yes, there's a huge theme of Taurus in the month of May, but then Mars enters, moves from Cancer into Leo at this time. So we have this next stage of the Mars evolvement in its own cycle. And then, of course, the following month, Venus joins. And so then we get that whole new kind of energy coming through after that. Where will Mars be at that time? Well, this is where it'll be in the sky. This is in the evening sky. So if you have some clearer skies during this month, you could see Mars move into the sign of Leo, meaning not into the constellation, but it's right on the border of this constellation called the Crab, which is this one right here. Astronomers still call Cancerus or Cancer. And then this is the sign of Cancer, but it's in the constellation of the twins, or what astronomers still call Gemini. Here's Venus. And last night, this is at this time of this recording, April 25th, 2023, I was seeing Venus and Mars in the sky and seeing how far apart they look. And they're going to get a lot closer in the coming months. So something to be aware of. Venus is making a beeline. It doesn't quite catch up to Mars, but it gets within about 3.5 degrees. So it's pretty close, but not quite there. And it'll be just before it reaches the Lion constellation, which is off the screen here above. You'll see the Lion, and that'll be, again, a future video, but something where you can follow yourself, Mars and Venus through the sky, with Mars entering Leo and Venus still in Cancer. This is again as of May 20th, 2023. But Venus moves roughly twice at its normal speed, roughly about twice as fast as Mars does, but even sometimes a little bit more. And Venus is at its normal clip. But then when we begin to get to late June into early July, it really starts to slow down and then stops before it even enters the sign of Virgo. All right, so one last thing to talk about with May 2023, another big one. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about all the different things that are happening in May astrologically, but this is another big one, the Saturn Sun Square. This happens May 28th at 6 degrees 52 minutes, the Sun in Gemini and Saturn in Pisces. This type of square always marks a boundary for Saturn to increase its visibility for us Earthlings. This particular square, Saturn is right now visible in the early morning sky. And it means that Saturn will be roughly halfway between the eastern western sunrise and sunset points. Again, it varies depending on the time of year this happens. So Saturn will rise about 3.5 hours before sunrise. So to be kind of in the middle-ish of the sky by the time the sun rises in the very early morning. But it's on its way to making itself being an evening star. And in addition, it signals within a few weeks anyway for Saturn, a slowing down of Saturn. May 28th, it's at 6:52 Pisces. But by June 17th, it will have moved only a quarter of a degree, actually a third of a degree, all the way to 7 degrees, 12 minutes of Pisces. So less than half a degree from the Sun-Saturn square mark. So Saturn will be slowing down. And that's when it tends to, at that point, really pick up its our own ability to see it in the mid-evening sky, and then eventually in the early evening sky. So by the time we get to late summer and early fall, Saturn will definitely be brighter in the sky and be more visible to more people, because it'll be visible in the evening, early to mid-evening, and actually most of the night. As of, again, this Saturn Sun Square is a marker for that, and helps us recognize the pattern of Saturn as it goes along. And there's a whole video that I did about Saturn and Pisces as well, so something to be aware of that you can check out more on with the astrology. So that's what I've got for you in the major highlights of the astrology of May 2023. And you can look me up at inspiralnexus.com, as well as mystaralchemy.com, where I do some work with Kaylin Castell about the stars and the constellations. And you can contact me, email me at inspiralnexus@gmail.com. I do readings, classes, events, and astrocartography and more, and talks and so forth. And this is what I do for a living. So it's my passion. I love it. And feel free to like and share and subscribe if this is something you want to see more of. And when I get more likes and or shares and subscriptions, it tells me that, there's more people love this kind of information, and I could do more with it in the future when I have that. So meaning I can invest more into making clean presentations and sharing more and doing even more videos, actually. So something I love to do, and I look forward to seeing you next time at the next video, which most likely will be about Jupiter and Taurus, but there could be one that I do in between now and then. So I look forward to seeing you then, and happy stargazing, everyone, and planet watching. And I'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.